Welcome back. Now it's time for the interview segment, and of course we'll be discussing about the ongoing crisis in Sudan. We know that the crisis is still ongoing, and of course there's a 3-day extension on ceasefire, but we have Nigerian students totaling about 5,000 who have been evacuated from the country. So today we'll be talking about the effect of Sudanese war on the Nigerian students, and we have a journalist and media consultant who will be doing justice to the topic. He's Francis Ogwo.
Hi guys.
Good morning. Thank you for joining us on the program.
Thank you for inviting me over.
Should I say fellow learned colleague? I know that's a borrowed term actually,
Yes.
but can you start?
Our Oga.
Yes.
No, we're all learning on
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
Okay, so on Sudanese crisis, on Sudanese war, or Sudan war rather, we see how it's been ongoing for a long while. This is more than 2 weeks right
Yes,
now, and
about
then we
2
see that
weeks.
it's not ending anytime soon. So first of all, we're talking about Nigerian students. As at Friday, the first batch has been evacuated, and they are back in the country. And of course, by today, we would know the particular number of batches that will be coming into the country right now. So let's talk about the part of Nigerians when it comes to moving out of the country for education. We know that there's currently a moving out wave, or a Japa wave now in the language, a Japa wave currently in the country, that everybody is trying to move out on the basis of education. So what should be the drive to leave Nigeria? When a person comes to say, oh, I want to leave the country, I want to leave Nigeria, what should be the basis? Should it be on education basis, or maybe something else, maybe probably on work basis? And just give us your insight
And
on that.
I think hold on, let me try to buttress on that question from another perspective. Now, we looking at the old Japa syndrome, the old traveling for education issue. We noticed that there has been more focus on the United States and the United Kingdom, but now we are having over 5,500 students coming from Sudan. And if you look at the educational system in Sudan, you can still conveniently say that education in Nigeria is still better than education in Sudan. Why would people go to Sudan?
Okay, so I think if I understand you very well, we are suffering from years of bad governance. As a country as little as Sudan, in quote, as compared to Nigeria, why would somebody leave Nigeria and go to Sudan? Some of these institutions across West Africa do not even, or Africa generally, do not have infrastructure as compared to what we have. They do not have a beehive of intellectuals as lecturers as compared to what we have. How many professors who have done articles or who have done projects as compared to what we have? But there's this feeling of, once I leave my country, it's success for me. So for you to leave Nigeria and go to Sudan, it's even ridiculous. Like, I'm traveling abroad for education. Now, our strikes and decaying infrastructure in schools, insecurity in schools, your kidnapping, where you have some of the schools outskirts of some cities, you'll be sure that these students feel unsafe. If I'm to spend 5 years in school and I'm spending 10 years, even if I go to a school that does not have windows, I have to just leave that setting. So bad governance has led our education sector into a level where people leave the country not because they are expecting something on a platter of gold, or they are expecting something bigger than what they have, but let them just have something that's working.
And the whole psychological issue of just not being in the Nigerian
the Nigerian setting, it makes people just want to do anything to just get it. Let me just have that certificate outside that Nigerian setting. Even if I'm going to spend 4 years, and I'm sure I'm spending 4 years and I'm graduating, it's better than spending 10 years for a 4 years program, where you spend 8 years for a 4 years program because of strikes, because of all of those little things that affect education in Nigeria. So that's one reason why I think people adopt Japa syndrome even in the education sector.
However, I think I was in conversation with someone yesterday, and he made a fact that if you look at the number of students that are coming from Sudan, most of them are northerners, and that you would see a lesser number of maybe southerners in Sudan. Can we invariably say maybe it's because of the proximity of that part of the country to Sudan? That is why we have more of the students there, or is it just a general thing?
Okay, I think first of all, Sudan is an Islamic country.
Okay.
And so many policies that circulate around observing the tenets of Islam. Now, if I know myself as a randy student, that I know I like some yopi lifestyles, I like partying, I like clubbing, I may not want to go to Sudan. I may not want to go to Egypt, I may not want to go to Mali.
Morocco.
Now, some of these countries also have catchment arrangements, right? They have better arrangements with some universities up north. For example, University of Maiduguri would have some arrangements they have with a Sudanese university or university in Mali or university in Niger. Do you understand? So all of those agreements makes it easier for people in the north to gain admission in
such countries.
As compared to somebody from Abia State going up north to Sudan to study. Now, because they have a lot of social atmosphere around the Islamic circle, it's easier for Muslims up north to blend very well in such environments where you don't have to be a clubber, where you don't have to adopt nightlife for you to survive in those kind of environments. I think it's strictly out of the setting of Sudan as an Islamic country.
Okay.
Now, there is a story here from Abike Dabirirewa, and she mentioned that Nigerian universities are ready to offer, are ready to admit Nigerian students returning from Sudan. Now, should that be something to perhaps consider at this moment when the discussion is still hot? You understand? Now, you're coming from a war-ridden environment. Should it be the fact that, okay, you can easily return to school now, that should be the discussion? We are talking about the social issue. Now, should it be that, or perhaps they should first be taken under maybe rehabilitation or therapy? You're coming from a war environment. Definitely, there is an effect. It has on your psyche. You understand? Should it be that will be coming first now? Should that be on the discussion, or we should more be focusing on their mental health at this moment?
I think our system is faulty. For example, somebody who is battling with trauma of 50 gunshots per minute, you're hearing gunshots and you're having your books, there's no how you can come into a school environment now and do well. What the government should focus on is get mental health specialists to work on these people, rehabilitate them, make them understand that they are home first of all, and they're away from those gunshots. Now that's the only way they can be mentally ready to adopt a learning environment. You're picking somebody from a war-torn environment to want to go back to school. That's not a priority for me. Get these people, get specialists to sit them down, make them understand that, okay, fine, you're no longer in Sudan, you're in Nigeria. You're free, you're not at risk of getting stray bullets into your body before you can now start talking about
going back to
school. I was opportunity to talk to some students who left Ukraine into Poland during the the break. Now, people were walking kilometers away from and hearing bullets behind them. In fact, some of them were not even bold enough to turn back because they were not sure where the bullets were coming from, but they just had to move, and they were not getting support from non-blacks during that journey.
Very true.
They never give them lifts out of Ukraine. They were walking for kilometers. Now, giving those kind of people and telling me you want to give me admission, that may not be like a priority to me, because I'm coming out from a near-death situation, and you're telling me you want to put me back in a classroom environment in terms of, I think it's a misplaced priority situation for Nigeria. What they should do is, how many of these students came out alive? Evaluate them mentally and see how many of them are ready to get back into school. You understand? If they had investment, somebody had investment in Sudan,
obviously.
You understand? Find out how many of them have investments, how do you want to evacuate the investments and rehabilitate them. So once you work on that, you can also say, yes, these people have distracted themselves from the setting they are coming out from, and they are ready for a new environment. That is where the government should get it right. Get mental health experts, work on them one-on-one. There you can now understand where their challenges are. Some of the best students in Sudan may come back and get very poor results in Nigeria because their mental health is distorted.
Okay. Now between last year and this year, we've had two major evacuations. First in Ukraine, Russia-Ukraine war, and now this. Given the fact that it took a while before the government came out to start evacuating students and all from this country. So what would you say about the response rate of the government? First off, when it comes to calling on the government to find a way to bring the students out, because personally I think that before they had the issue of having to travel by by the road, having to use buses to transport them and all of that. If they had gone probably earlier than that, this wouldn't have been the case. So what would you say about Nigerians' response to emergency situations in other countries?
Okay, I think we have had situations that became very, very worrisome. If you remember the situation in South Africa, this same airpiece made efforts to evacuate Nigerians who were in South Africa into the country. Now, we have a government that does not act on timely emergencies, but act on bureaucratic decisions. If you decide to evacuate students after 1 week, and in 3 days they are already dying, you plan to evacuate them in 1 week or 1 month because you feel there are some bottlenecks you have to sort out as a government. What happens to those students before the 1 week expires? Now, this is what makes students lose confidence in our governance. For example, if I know that I'm stranded and I cannot call on my country to help me and rise to my situation, if any country comes to my aid, I may just pledge allegiance to that country because they helped me. It has happened in our sporting sector, where some people carry flags of other countries, whereas they're Nigerians, because some countries helped them when they needed them most. If you pick this out, we have NEMA, National Emergency Management Agency. Now, if NEMA is up and doing, when there's a crisis outbreak, people are in trauma, people are dying.
Yes.
I'm too sure that our head count of people who were victims of this Sudanese crisis may not just be students. We are focusing on students because that is where we had that education tourism focus more on. But there are people who were not students who are trapped in Sudan, who probably would have died and not recognized.
Very true.
So if our federal government is very quick in emergency situations, we'll have reduced casualties and also renewed hope in our governance as a system that works. So I think our government is not doing enough in terms of timeliness of operation and response in this kind of situations. What if airpeace had not supported in moving these people out? What would have happened to them?
Maybe we'll be talking about having to use those buses to transport them from Sudan back to Nigeria.
Look at the distance from all the way from, and you have to travel to the desert to bring these people into the country. What happens to them, their health, and all those issues around the evacuations? It's a problem. And we don't have countries that gives you right over the airspace easily. So what happens when you are passing through countries that can easily shoot down your planes because of insecurity? Africa has been battling with insecurity over the years. You cannot bring all the way from Sudan into Nigeria without flying over airspace of countries that are troubled. What happens to those people? What is the possibility of these people flying over those countries and coming back to Nigeria with their heads intact? So these are issues, and you cannot travel by road because of the distance. You have to travel through Cairo, down through Mali and through the desert areas. And these are very hot regions. And some of these people are very young. People in year 1, 2, and thereabouts. You can imagine their age groups. Some of them may take the next 4 years to get themselves back into wanting to even get into schools again because they're in trauma. So that's the issue.
An official stated recently that the federal government spent $1.2 million, on evacuating students from Nigeria, and there was a total of 40 buses, used for the evacuation operation. Now, looking at how much was spent, $1.2 billion. Do you actually think that the amount stated actually justifies the process, the process we saw? Everything that happened with them being stranded. And drivers saying they were not paid, that they only paid half an hour, and they said they spent $1.2 million. Do you think it's actually, do you think it justifies it? Do you think it's actually, are they striking the balance?
I think I smell a rat in all of these government pronouncements. Because if things were done right, that $1.2 million, it's not talking of naira here, talking of dollars.
Yes.
If you had pumped this money into the education sector, I'm too sure this will not get out of this country. Now look at the amount you're spending to evacuate people, and these people are, they end up trapped in the desert. You're talking of where you spend the next 5 minutes and your throat is dry. You may just die of exhaustion and all of that. And you're spending 1.2 million naira for evacuation, and not all of these people were even attended to. You understand? Now, this is one of the biggest issues I have with the country. We are more of salvaging situations than doing the right things. You understand? So if all of these students that are trapped around these universities, and government is saying 1.2 million for evacuation of nationals, and insecurity has been a challenge. You are moving them from not just Darfur, you are moving them from Khartoum. And these are hours apart. And each of these regions have these rebels stationed at checkpoints, shooting sporadically at anybody they see in sight. You understand? So to what extent can you say 1.2 million can handle all of these issues? I think I smell some kind of shady information these people are giving us.
Okay, so there is also a statement here by Abike Dabiri. She said, in her words, she said, NEMA will decide what will be given to the returnees before the funding is because the funding is with the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs and Disaster Management. Usually it's just a little amount. The last one, that was, Russia, Ukraine. She said we gave them $100. So it depends on the budget they have. But in NIDCOM, we give them recharge cards, SIM cards, and sometimes phone. Usually they get $100 just to hold, and these are students coming back to their families. They are not refugees, they have homes. Now we're talking about the students settling down. So $100, and then having $1.2 million for the buses just for the evacuation program, and then you're giving students $100 to settle down, given the fact that they are not refugees but they are students, and then handing them recharge card phones and also. Looking at all of this, is this really the right move in trying to help these students? Because many of them have moved away 4 years, 5 years, 6 years away from this country, and coming back, they can't just begin their lives where they left it. They have to go through a process of rehabilitation and all of that. So what do you say about that?
You are coming into a country where our currency is devalued, and you're giving $100. First of all, what am I to do with $100? If I split 100 naira into naira, $100 into naira, I'll virtually have nothing to write home about. Now, what is the probability of not migrating out of the country again when I finish spending that money? You are still telling me there's no hope for me. $100 as compared to our exchange rate is rubbish. Now, you are giving a recharge card to do what? You're talking of people who lost valuables in millions. Some of these students a lot of them do work study abroad. They do a lot of work to survive, and they paid in hard currencies. And when they leave those war-torn countries and come back to the country, you're giving them $100. I think it's meager and ridiculous. Because you're trying to resettle somebody who you understand very well that has lost valuables, both as a student and as somebody who's been working to survive in those countries. The value of their currencies are much more than what we have in the country. So we understand very well that our country, our economy is bad. We should be able to do something better for these people to feel like home is different from what they experience abroad. Otherwise, when they get themselves back, they will start looking for the next embassies to get back out of the country and go back to square one. 75% of these people who you think have come home, in quotes, what is home for them? Home should be better than what they experience abroad. So if you tell me you're giving $100 when I know it can only buy me drinks
for a few
days, and because I've adopted to a lifestyle different from what I'm going to have in the country, then why should I remain in the country? After spending my $100, I'll get back to where $100 is like peanuts for me. So the government should focus on understanding that these people are coming into a system that is already nosediving negatively. And how acceptable are your terms and conditions to these people? Fine, you're bringing them home, you want to make them feel home. But is the home conducive? How vibrant is the economy that they can survive on? To what level are they going to have soft landing when they enter a country? It's one thing to call them your own people, they are coming back home. But what are they going to see down home? To what extent are you going to make them feel what they should receive down home is better than what they are getting out of the country? Because you are trying to make them understand that yes, you never had reasons to travel out of the country to start with. Nigeria is still home. Nigeria is still better off. If I can have a country as big as Nigeria in Africa, why should I go out of the country to go and study? Some of our private universities are bigger than what these people are passing through in the name of going abroad for education tourism. Why not spend time, think out of the box? The money you're spending on the evacuation of these people, pump them into our federal universities, pump them into our private universities, and see people coming from Sudan to come and study in Nigeria. People, all these countries that come in, these nationals that come into Nigeria, and we see them like they are suffering in Nigeria. But we go to their country to go and study. What are we studying? Look at the scheme of work and compare them to what we have from our lecturers in the country. You will know very well that we are mismanaging what we have. And that's why we keep having brain drain out of this country. Some of our biggest lecturers have awards and recognitions outside the country because countries are valuing what they have. So even if you're bringing these people into this country and giving them $100, I think you're mocking them. You're making them feel like what they're coming out from is just on the surface. If you spend money on their brain and what the trauma that would affect them if they want to really get back into society. You understand? Because some of them, even the shame of facing an environment they felt they had left, you know, having to face students and friends who they had told, I don't succeed, man, I don't jack out. As much as we think Sudan is just here, but you've left the country. So the government should be bowing in shame when they know very well that somebody leaving Nigeria to go to study in Sudan because they feel our education sector is bastardized. These are issues that should make Nigeria weep for itself. For me, I think I was educated in the country. And what I think I know, if I go to Sudan, what's Sudan going to tell me? Sudan cannot offer me what Nigeria has offered me. So if you're bringing me back from Sudan, make me understand very well that Nigeria is better off than what you're going to get abroad. That is what will make people who are not even in war-torn countries to come back to the country.
I think that one reason why many people leave this country and go to other countries because there's a security that after I'm done with my schooling, after I'm done with my education, there is a job waiting for me. Even if the job, maybe the job might not be waiting exactly for them, but once they start a job search, there'll always be a job, that they can always, run to and do something just to get an income. So when we're talking about the system of education, the structure of education here in Nigeria, we know that, of course, the lecturers are good. We have good lecturers. We have good, maybe the courses and all of that. But we're talking about what happens after school life. I think that's where the major point is. What happens after school? What confidence do I have that when I'm done studying this course, I'm going to get something? Because I know that taking it back to the school I attended, there were so many courses that I never thought would have, I saw the courses for the very first time. I was surprised, like, oh, so there's a course that is actually named like this. Does that mean that we have, a job in this aspect? I recently saw someone who is just a taster. He studied, he went to school, he did his PhD in tasting management or so, and that is what he's doing. But here in Nigeria, can that be possible? Would you go to the university to say, oh, I want to study something related to tasting and then I'll get a job afterwards? So what is that? How do we move away from, of course, oh, the lecturers are good, probably they need to be paid more and all of that? How do we move from that to the point where we have job security, where we know that after school we have jobs for students?
Okay, I think we, first of all, like I said, I fault our government over the years. For example, if I study in Sudan, I'm not biased about Sudan, but I'm lamenting in my heart,
Generally.
because I know very well that these countries do not have what Nigeria has. If I study in Sudan, what kind of jobs am I going to get in Sudan? How much of jobs do they have in Sudan? Now, we have a country with a vibrant agricultural sector, promising one. We have job opportunities in the agricultural sector, we have in the manufacturing sector, we have in transport sector, we have people making money from e-hailing businesses, and we have graduates who are making money from businesses, thriving businesses in the country. How much of them do we have abroad in some of these African countries that are swallowing up our students? We're not talking of Europe, we're not talking of UK, we're talking of Africa. If we cannot raise our heads and shoulders high in Africa, then how can we compete with UK or some of these bigger environments? So it's shameful that we are struggling with rehabilitation of Nigerians from Sudan. Now, our job environment, how many people are you absorbing after school? You mentioned something about getting jobs after school. I graduate from school and I don't have jobs to do. I don't have anything to do. I'm hanging at home. An option I only have is to do Okada. Or end up being a baba.
Exactly.
Why do I have to spend 4 or 5 years in school and I end up doing jobs that cannot even take care of me and my family?
Yes.
Some people get scared of setting up families because they can't take care of them. So they end up on the streets. Even after graduating, they don't end up making good families. The children that are unfortunate to come out from families that the parents do not have good income end up being miscreants on the roads. Now, if government focuses on job creation, that okay, you leave school, what away from what you studied in school, what does your passion tilt towards? Okay, I graduated from school and I'm interested, I'm passionate about this, I'm passionate about that. You create jobs in that regard. Now, away from who do you know, can I get a job on merit? That will build some kind of confidence in Nigerians post institutions. If I know that I'm graduating from school, I don't need to know one commissioner or honorable to get into the civil service. I'll quickly graduate and follow up all of these things through the normal processes, and I'm getting my jobs. So Nigeria should get it right by making sure that some of those bottlenecks that affect students graduating from our tertiary institutions are managed effectively. So people don't lose confidence in our government. Because as much as it has continued, people will keep living in the country in droves. And it's a problem. Because if you have somebody who is a first-class graduate, and before you're thinking of another country that thinks they value that student more than you, picks that country away, you've lost a potential. Some people are hitting the streets, getting mental, some of them are landing in psychiatric hospitals because they thought of surviving in a hopeless situation, a hopeless country. Nobody cares, no jobs, and I need to eat. They end up being beggars, some end up being robbers. So all of these issues can affect our country and our productivity status over the years. Because if you now begin to rate project in the next 4 years, how many graduates are gainfully employed? Or how many graduates will be gainfully employed in the next 4 years? I would prefer I don't even get into school than graduating after 4 years and I'll go back to the streets. Why not let me stay on the streets? That's why you have a lot of students who drop out of school and they begin to do internet fraud and other things because they feel that's the easiest way to make money. Why would I get to school and I don't get jobs? So all of these issues are issues that the government should look into. People sit down in the houses of assemblies and house of rep and they ignore some of these policies that can make people lose confidence in the country. If you pass bills that should favor students, both in school and out of school, people now begin to have this confidence in, okay, if I leave school, I may be a graduate of business management, but because I'm passionate about building technology, I can get into a factory and I get a paid job. So I can keep my document and my skill gives me a job. You understand it? So we should be able to structure this thing properly so that the flow of skill acquisition will not be distorted at the end of the day. Because the end point of going to acquire skills, both in school and some technical institutions, is for you to be gainfully employed. So when I know that I'm not going to get jobs, why would I go to school? So if some of these people who have left Nigeria to go and school, the issue is they have lost confidence in what we have in the country. Ordinarily, in Nigeria should not be struggling with Sudan in terms of educational status and even the technical competence of some of these people who have in our institutions. We need these professors to go out of the country and gain recognition out of Nigeria. They become celebrated because we never valued them here. So I think Nigeria should get it right. Create jobs. We have avenues where people can be gainfully employed. Only the agricultural sector can employ a lot of people because our export window is very vibrant. Our CFTA agreement will favor Nigeria on the long run. Boost the agricultural sector. Give single-digit interest loans to people who want to do agriculture. They do small businesses. I'll help our small and medium enterprises set up businesses. People can have small businesses, do exports. They don't need to have white-collar jobs and still survive. So if all of these opportunities can be thrown to people who want to japa, in quotes, we're not going to have that issue cropping again. We can have home in the real sense of it and call Nigeria our home.
Thank you very much,
so
Mr.
much.
Francis. Really appreciate your time this morning.
Exactly. We wish we can go on and on, but we're already out of time. Thank you so much. I really hope that the government hears this and do something about it. And we also pray for peace in Sudan. Okay, so right about now we're going on a short break to back up with Daybreak Africa. Stay with us.